Hey guys, welcome back to Evolve or Die. My last video was pretty much about the steps that I take to researching a company and how I evaluate a company. How do I find value? How do I measure, which companies that I'm going to invest in? And I'll leave a link down to those steps to researching and evaluating a company down below in the description. And I do apologize, I'm still a little bit sick. So if I sound like congested or nasally, I apologize. And let's dive right into today's topic. Today we're going to be talking about why I stay away from companies that are based out of China. And if you have been a member of the channel and you watched my first video about how I got inspired to teach myself how to invest and how to find value, one of those ways is mitigating risk. I am not risk adverse. Part of investing is a certain degree of accepted risk, but I don't believe in taking on unnecessary risks, especially if the potential gain is not worth the accepted risk. But anywho, moving on, what do I mean by mitigating risk? That means not taking on any unnecessary risks, guys. And to me, investing in China's GDP is a risk for a number of reasons. But the reasons that we're going to talk about today are simply the reasons that affect the market. So China is not known for being a transparent entity. They're not very open with disclosing their operations or their dealings or their intra-country operations. So with that being said, I'm not comfortable with putting large sums of money essentially in the control of a government's hands that can shut down operations at any time they see fit. But the main reason that I wanted to make this video is because a structure that they've listed a lot of their companies underneath, called a VIE structure, a variable interest entity structure. And in this financial structure, it's essentially creating shell companies with the same names as the legitimate companies in China. So examples of this would be Alibaba, Tencent, and it's just now coming to my attention that NIO is also listed under this VIE structure. So to give you guys an idea, the actual companies that are based out of China that are in charge of the legal and financial dealings and all of the operations, that company by China law is not allowed to have any foreign investors. So by law, technically, we're not supposed to be having any partial ownership or any shareholder access to NIO's holdings. However, they created a loophole in a sense. These VIE structures, these VI structures that essentially allow China to open shell companies in offshore accounts. They're literal shell companies. It could be a PO box for all we know, or just a structure with an address, the same name as the actual company, and a legal agreement that they have the rights to all of the interest, all of the profit, and whatever royalties are allocated to the shareholders that are in a foreign jurisdiction. So essentially, it's a loophole to isolate all foreign investors from actually being partial owners in the real company and taking ownership instead of in a shell company that has the rights to the profits that the real company makes. So it's a very ambiguous gray area. And what makes this really interesting is that technically this structure is also illegal in China. Like under Chinese law, any law or any statute that is an attempt to undermine like already existing law is illegal. So based on Chinese law, both of the structure, the VIE structure, the VIE structure is illegal, and also the ownership of any foreign persons or foreign institutions in their companies. So it's a really interesting, obscure topic, and like, again, that just comes to, again, not wanting to accept unnecessary risk. And it just seems like such a gray area. Like, how is Wall Street and the SEC kind of just ignoring that these Chinese offshore variable investment entities are managing $4 trillion of US currency, even though the entire structure that they've created to create a loophole essentially around their own law. But I worry not for China, but for US investors. So you are invested in these companies that have no business, and they have no funds. It's literally a shell company with like the establishment that they have the rights to the profits and the rights to the revenue that the real company makes. So it's just very interesting, guys. You got to look it up. They're called variable interest entities. And like I said, guys, NIO does operate under this structure as well as Alibaba and Tencent Holdings. So you guys can let me know what you think down in the comments about China trying to, create this loophole. And I know the SEC knows about it because they are actually trying to uphold even further the, let's see, Donald Trump passed a Holding Foreign Companies Accountable Act that basically is saying that all US listed, specifically Chinese listed companies though, they're US listed, but they're Chinese backed, basically calling for stricter disclosure on their dealings and their operations. So remember, we talked about how China is not known for transparency, and the fact that there are these structures that they can create to prevent shareholders from actually having ownership in the real company, but they have rights to the money and they have rights to their royalties through an offshore shell company. It just reeks of unwanted risk regarding regulatory standards and fears for delisting. When I hear about this structure, this ominous very gray area, I can't find a lot of information about it, about these variable interest entities. Sorry, that's a mouthful. I can't find a lot of information about them. So that also makes me worry. And guys, again, it's just, we don't want to take on accepted risk. And that's just my personal take on it. One of the reasons another reason why I stay away from companies that are based out of China. But that pretty much sums up this video, guys. I just wanted to do a quick little disclaimer because I feel like a lot of people don't know about this structure that are invested in NIO, and potentially you do know about it, and maybe that you're fine with that. But to me, it just seems like if you're a long-term investor for NIO or for Alibaba, that this would be something that you would want to know about how this structure really operates, and that you're really invested in an offshore shell company and not the real parent holdings or the real company. just very, very odd and obscure, and that they manage so much money, these offshore shell companies. It's just peculiar to me. But that pretty much sums it up, guys. The book of the week we're going to be reading this week, Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind. It's a really great read about the evolution of the human psychology and the way people interact on a social, on an instinctual, and on a like environmental / economic level. It's a really very interesting philosophical worldview. I'll leave a link down below. Again, that's Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind by author Yuval Noah Harari. I hope I didn't butcher that. But yeah, guys, keep evolving, and let me know if you guys can find anything about these ominous structures, or if you have thoughts, or if you're holding Alibaba or Tencent or Neo. And you guys can just talk to me about that in the comments down below. So thanks for tuning in, guys. Keep evolving.